So I went out to take photos yesterday, and one of my big goals recently has been to find local places that I don't have to just travel so far away to, because I want a good selection of places that I can drive to that are like 2 hours under of where I live, so that I can easily get to those, come back in the same day. Because in August, my baby is gonna be born, and I don't wanna be going on too many long trips, at least within the first 6 months. So I'm trying to stockpile a lot of these local places that I can go find and shoot. And I found one yesterday of just these really beautiful wheat fields, almost some of the kinds that you would find in like Palouse, Washington. I went and found this place and I started photographing it, and it was just fun to go out and shoot. But I realized that all of my like filters and lenses were just super dusty and dirty. So today I want to go back out there and try my hand at the same type of photographs. But here's some of the images that I shot yesterday. They're cool and they're interesting, but it's just that thought of getting to a location and being overwhelmed by the grand scene in front of you. And I don't really find it bad to take those types of images, but also I started looking at them as I was editing through them, and I started to discover other smaller details that I would have liked to have shot when I was there. And then looking back through them, I also thought it was beneficial to see some of the highlighted tones and shadowed tones that were there while I was photographing that I kind of missed. And I think doing an assessment of an image, especially of a local place, and figuring out, okay, if I got there an hour later, maybe the shadows would be a little bit longer, more dramatic. Maybe the light would be a little bit golden, other weather conditions. You can log that information away and really take that with you as kind of like a grain of salt for the next time you go out and plan out your shoot that way and wait for those right conditions. Now, the reason that I wanted to go to a location like this was because it stormed really bad here in Tennessee a couple nights ago. But the storms cleared out right as sunset was hitting, and I looked out my window and the whole sky was orange, and you had these crazy mammatus clouds that were overhead. And I just thought, man, it would be so cool to photograph this over a farm, a cornfield, a wheat field, a barn, something where I could go out and shoot. So I hopped on Google Earth and found some local places that I could get to, but I wanted to go out and shoot these. So seeing what I shot yesterday, I realized it doesn't have to be a storm. I can find some golden light, some highlights, and some shadows, and really take some intimate scene details of where I was yesterday. So today, I want to go back out to that place and find that same spot. And instead of going at the time that I went to scout these locations, I wanted to go closer to golden hour and photograph some detail shots of this wheat field. So getting out here yesterday, I was kind of just taken aback by this whole scene, because as you can see, we have all these just rolling hills back here of wheat, and it's just this beautiful scene, and it's exactly what I wanted to photograph out here. But I was out here too early just because I was scouting and the sun wasn't in the right location, because we had clouds that were kind of just rolling through the frame overhead, and it was casting shadows on the ground below. And the way I framed this up with a wide angle lens, it encapsulated all that and got it all within the frame. However, I got to thinking, well, the star of the show down at the bottom is really the wheat field. So how do I exclude a lot of the distraction? And I decided to do that by completely removing the horizon line and the sky and just photographing detail shots of the rolling hills of wheat. Now, to do that, instead of getting out here at the same time of day and playing with the clouds, we got out here a little bit later in the day. So it's like 2 hours before sunset now. And as the sun gets lower on that horizon, we're gonna get backlight on all those wheat hills. And when that happens, you get shadows hitting the tops of that, and the crests really light up with some backlight, and then the shadows get long and cast over the hills. So you get a lot more difference and contrast within the hills, and you get a lot better light that way too, not relying on the clouds. Now, we could have had a good sunset today, but the clouds are starting to burn off. So this way, we're not really relying on those clouds to get the shot that we want to get. We're just playing through like the exposure and the scene that we have on the ground in front of us with the wheat fields. Let me take you through my camera settings that I'm using real quick before we take this shot. So here's what I have in front of me. I'm using a 1/200th of a shutter speed f11 and ISO 100 to really reduce the amount of darkness and noise that might go on within these shadows. But I framed it up basically with these crisscrossing patterns coming in on the top third horizon line of this image. So when you see it that way, what you can see is how these kind of just play off one another and dance back through the frame and allow these lines to weave back through. Now, as the sun gets lower on the horizon, like I said, you're gonna get longer shadows over these and get more pronounced details from the peaks of these hills that cast shadows down into the valleys. And we're gonna get really smooth and soft transitions between highlights and shadows, which is exactly what I want. Doing it this way allows me to capture a more interesting photograph, removing a lot of those distractions from the image rather than taking that big wide angle shot. So here's the big wide angle shot that I got yesterday, and then analyzing it and removing that distraction. Here's what I got with just these detail shots.